Welcome back to the Always Right podcast. I'm author Carissa DeLay with my co-host.
Jamie Vendera.
Hello, Jamie.
I'm working on my low notes today.
Oh, today are you being was it an alto or a bass?
I don't even put it into categories. To me, it's all one voice. I've hit notes so low that I hit the brown note, and I've hit notes so high that dogs would squeal and dolphins would laugh. So yeah, I don't worry about that.
That's funny. All right, so today we are going to tackle long books versus short books.
All right.
So writing those short stories versus taking on a novel. So how would you like to start this, Jamie? Do you want to go over, because you're a short book writer.
Is that you making fun of my height? Is that what it is?
I think you're taller than me.
Oh, I'm just by like 2 inches or something.
How tall are you?
5'8". I'm 5'7" and 4/4. So
okay,
I'm up
well,
there.
I'm not even 5 foot.
Yeah, we had this discussion before, and I'm like, "You're crazy," and you said, "Well, I wear really tall heels."
Mm-hmm.
So I had no idea that.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, since we're going to start with me, we'll start with short books. I absolutely love them. I can't even talk this morning. I absolutely love them because I know back in maybe 2008 when we started 7-Eleven Press, when Daniel Middleton, who owns Scribe Freelance and does my interior design, he started it with me. He's like, "Let's write books," and we were talking about it. He says, "You remember way back in the day on television, they would have these cliffhangers. They would be these TV shows that always end on a cliffhanger. You had to wait to the next one." He said, "Let's write them like that. Let's write them really short. So if you read a movie book, you could read it in the same time you watch a movie. So like less than 3 hours." So we keep our movie books, our short movie books, about 30,000 words, 30 to 35,000, maybe 25,000, not really long, like 100 pages. And we could tell a story. We also had TV books, which would have 13 episodes or 13 chapters, which were no longer than 4,000 or 5,000 words per chapter. So, not 50 to 65,000 word book. And you could read each chapter in less than an hour, less than really 20 minutes. For me, it worked out great because I have so many stories in my head that it takes a lot less time for me to get that story out, to write it, to edit it, and honestly, it helps me to keep it cohesive. If I'm writing a big 100,000 page book, 100,000 word book, I am tongue tied today. Too many squirrels running around today. And Raise Your Voice is huge. It's like that. It's like 400 pages. It takes me months, and I have to go back and double check what I've written to make sure I'm not repeating myself like I do a lot of times in these podcasts that you've reminded me of, because I tell all the same stories. So if I'm if I'm stuck in that realm of a short book, I don't have to worry about that. Like, yesterday I wrote about this character and I do that. I don't have to go back through 300 pages to find it. So for me, more cohesive, easier to complete, and honestly, it's less cost. If I print these up, if you print up a 100-page book, of course, you can't sell it for as much as you would a 300-page book. You kind of could. It's a novel, but it's much less in cost when I'm going to print. So that is... Yeah, really the three main things for me is what really, there's a bunch of other things like, experimenting with my writing and changing from one genre to the other. I write in horror, then I write in YA fiction, and I don't have to get bogged down for a year or two in one genre. So it allows me to really explore. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that gives, if you are an introductory author, that's going to give you like kind of like a test drive. It gives you a test drive into writing. If you like you don't have to feel like you're overwhelmed with a novel. You could definitely feel like, okay, I'm test driving this as an author, and I'm going to see if I even like writing. What's the feel? So shorter books might not be as overwhelming when it comes to experimenting with, like you said, experimenting with your writing and knowing if you're going to be able to go and elaborate on storylines or how well can you do that.
Yeah, and then if you're a children's book writer, of course, that's already the mindset. Now, when Daniel and I started this, it's not that short books didn't exist; they have forever. But Kindle, was really blowing up at the time, and nobody was doing short books. And boom, we were even doing crazy things like if we wrote a TV book with those 13 chapters, we would release one chapter, one episode per week at a time. It was 99 cents a piece, and it didn't really catch. I mean, it did for us. We were making a lot of money, and it was really going good. And then, Kindle got oversaturated, and it kind of got diluted, and nobody was really doing that. But now you go on Kindle, and they have Kindle Shorts, Kindle Novellas. So
Mhm.
it's kind of come full circle. Everyone's into that, and it does help a lot of new writers. Like I really want to write a
Mhm.
book. I've been trying to for years. Do you remember when Crystal Gate, when you first approached me about that? That was
Mhm.
the reason I said, hey, why don't we split this up in 2 or 3 books? And
Right.
I understand now, which we'll get into long books in a minute, why you didn't. But that was my frame of mind. If I took Crystal Gate and divided it in 2 or 3 parts, that's 3 print books. That's 3 times the money. It'll be about the same print price because we split it in 3 or 2, and you're still making more. And then you have more product. But that
Yeah.
doesn't always work because there are cons about writing short books. And what do you
Yeah.
think about it? What are some of the cons you think?
So, and that's the thing, like, kind of like when we're talking about Crystal Gate, is the con with that. And even Rich actually agreed with me because I said, hey, Jamie had suggested breaking this up. He's like, there's no place to break your book up. He's like, your storyline, the way you develop it, because when you have a shorter book, you don't have to spend as much time making deep, like, um, like deeper. What's the word I'm looking
Like
for?
a development, character development, world building,
Right. Yeah. So you don't have to be you can be a little quicker with your development, like in the depth of the book. It doesn't have to be as great. I'm not saying in like as great in like quality. I'm talking as great as like you don't have to put as much detail. You're
detail.
just trying to kind of get a general story, right? So with me, with Crystal Gate, I did a lot of character development. I did a lot of story development. So there wasn't really a point where you could break that up because the story was still building in different points of the book where it'd be like, oh, you just cut this off, but that doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
So
and it gives you room to
that's
add more
different.
story. Like I can't do story arcs in my book. I mean, I will have trilogies, but it isn't really like like if you watch the show Lost, there was a lot of story arcs in there, jumping back and memory of all the characters. I can't do that in a short book. You do have room to do that in a long book.
Right. So essentially, if you were to put like where we've talked about Spitfire is going to have like 11 books. If you put that all together, it might be just one large novel with character development, with story development, over time. So you're just breaking it down in simpler points and giving it a little bit faster access, which is kind of becoming more of a trend for people on the go. They just want a quick read.
Yep.
So there is a pro to that people are starting to want that quick, easy, accessible book. But then there's also that whole like take the novel with you. I see a lot of people. My girls take novels to work. My one kid, she's reading a big novel right now in the car, so she's got it everywhere she goes.
Yeah. No,
So that is,
you just read
yeah.
my mind because if I remember like Sword of Shannara was like 700 pages, and to me that was of value. It was in depth. I could take it with me. So if you're like a physical print book reader, you want that experience. You're going to the beach, like you
Mm-hmm.
tell me you do all the time to rub it in my face, or you're on an airplane or whatever. I'm gonna rub it in your face here in a few weeks when I'm down in the Cayman Islands. So,
Mm-hmm.
or wait a minute, when this podcast comes out, I'll probably already have been, and then I'll be gloating about
Yeah,
it.
you'll
So,
be in the Cayman Islands when this episode comes out.
yeah. So, there is that. If you really want to develop your characters, I don't know if short books would work for you. So,
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing too. You were talking about being, like having the point to put them out. So I mean, you kind of have pricing challenges because you're not going to make as much money.
yeah, I'm
What are you
listening
doing?
I'm thinking about this. You're not going to make as much money. I'm trying to find a really thin book.
Because you're not going to sell a smaller book for the same price as a bigger book. I mean,
Exactly.
pros and cons.
Well, like an example too, you're not going to be able to sell as much, but this is one of my movie books. This is the big book, and it's
And that's
not that
the
thick.
big book of everything.
Yeah, and it's 205 pages. But King's Vengeance, this is actually one of my thicker TV book. No, this is not even a TV book. This is still a movie book too, and it's only 145 pages. Or I can't even read. My eyes are getting bad. It's only 95 pages, and this is a movie book. So, and this is a TV book. I'm sorry. I'm tongue tied today. I'm squirrely.
Wow.
Yeah, TV book with 13
Okay,
episodes.
I just
Movie book.
added I just added a con. I just added a con. When you write so
Squirrels.
many small books, You don't even know what you've written.
Yeah, that is amazing because I can't remember. I've written so much, and as like you're on me, it's like you got to finish Age of the Sigil. So I'm working on that, and it's like I got to go back and read it because I don't even know what I've written. Oh no, that wasn't in that book. That wasn't Siren, or that wasn't Spitfire. So I do get a little confused. So, but anyway, now the role reversal: TV book, movie book. They're not longer than barely 200 pages. So some people who want that print book, they might not like that. Okay, well, here's Reese.
Do you think it's harder to extend like a series whenever you do shorter books?
Not for me. It could be for me personally because I'm from these podcasts, I'm talking so much, my brain's everywhere. I jump right into it like I'm watching a Netflix show. So it's bam, 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 bam. And I did a thing with 7-Eleven Press. And I need to sit down to go over this for Vendera Publishing. Almost every single book series is tied into the other one.
Right.
Age of the Sigil into Spitfire, into Order of Five, into Phoenix Earth. They're all connections, so it's really in the same Earth. Kind of like you have Marvel or DC. And there's that world building. So I always kept it on that, even though you may not notice it. You will if you read Shifters and Age of the Sigil. There are major connections in those two books.
Well, and I seen that you had you lifted up Four Rivers and
I'm
one
going
of
to
your
keep them
books.
here. Yeah, because we'll talk about long books here in a minute. Much better.
Look, just put the size next to each other.
Well, let me get a small one. Here's my TV book, and look, and here's your book, and and of course, if yours was smaller in size, I know I got too much light on here. It would be
Thicker.
much thicker. So, like,
Yeah.
Raise Your Voice is 400 pages. Four River, I can't even remember how many pages this is, but it's definitely close. I can't believe you don't know how many pages your book is. I get 295. Yeah, so see, 300,
but
400
Crystal
pages.
Gate's bigger than that.
Yes. Yeah. And I know I got Crystal Gate. It's out in my studio. That's why it's not down here. No, I got it setting up here. Man, the squirrels are crazy with me today.
I have it.
Yep, good. You keep doing that, and I'll keep pushing this until it falls apart. Come here.
Yeah, so listen, whenever, and this is a good idea, whenever I wrote Crystal Gate, it was like 450 pages originally. And then when Rich edited it, it went down to like 425.
And he probably had a fit.
But, right. But based on the size of the book that we did, because, size wise, it took this down to like 3 something. Excuse me.
But that worked out for printing too, because you got to look at it.
357.
Since it's a hardback copybook, it's nice. Now we put out paperback; it will probably be a 5x8, or I don't care what we keep it at. But that could change. So it being, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a pro con for both short and long is cost. A con for long books, it's a lot more expensive to print per page. And all that than it is to print a shorter book because you're not printing as much pages. You're not paying for as much editing. So it's a lot faster turnaround for your books.
And go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just saying, and book covers, whether it's short or long, your book cover, you pay for what you're getting. It's artwork.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. You and I discussed this. Yes, it could cost more. And, if I put out like 3 movie books in a series, like, whatever, like Crisis Artifact, those books are like 130 pages, and the next one's like 105, and the third one's like 95 or something. They're really short. Yes, I can put them out, and I could sell them for a little more, but the print cost would probably add up to, or even be a little more than if I combine them together. So we talked about that. Like, why spit out a tiny little book that's got 80 or 90 pages in it when I can just combine the whole trilogy in there? And of course, we have Kindle, we got ebook, and then you sell them individually, but you have anthology of the whole series. So I do like that for a long book, and that will kind of keep that character development right there for my short books. And that may be something our listeners may want to do. If you're developing a series like a Kindle Shorts or novellas, and you get out 10 of them, and you may want to take it to an interior designer, do a new book cover, and slap it together, be like, wow, that's only 310 pages, and I can sell that as well. So
Yeah. And speaking of like our listeners, but even just readers in general, um, sometimes with short books, do you feel like maybe, I mean, you're not, and I've talked about a book that I feel like maybe this happened to, it was a shorter book. It wasn't a quite a novel, but I felt like there was no development, but I felt unsatisfied with the book. I felt like I didn't get as much. I felt like the story was rushed.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that can be sometimes a challenge?
No, I definitely believe that. And honestly, on that, I try not to do that in my books, but I have had people say, hey, I finished this in like 47 minutes. Where's the next book? You don't have the next one out? So, like with Spitfire,
Mhm.
which is a kind of a kid's book, I've got 2 of the 11 out, and I've had a couple people say, I was done in less than a day for both of these. I was done by lunchtime. I'm
Mhm.
waiting. Now you're dissatisfying me because I haven't had them out.
And I've said
So,
that previously that people don't want to start a series unless the series is done. So you have to finish Age of the Sigil.
yeah, same way. Terry Brooks put out a new series with Child of Light, 3 books, and they're done. And I just bought them all on Kindle because I was like, I'm not going to touch this. But I'm not allowing myself to read that, and I really want to until I finish Age of the Sigil. It's because I'm
Mhm.
like, that's eating up time on that book. So I know. I got to get that done. And that's my favorite series I've written, honestly. I love Age of the
Yeah,
Sigil.
so get it done. It's almost like you're leaving a checklist.
And not
So you
finishing off.
on purpose. Yeah, you need to
Yeah,
finish it.
it's not that. I mean, it's too many squirrels, too many partners. I'm checking all this stuff off, but the most important one, Age of the Sigil. I am working on it though.
Good. Good.
All right. Now I'm
Okay.
walk of shame. Gotta go.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Um
any
and
more
I
pros?
feel go ahead.
Any more pros with the long books? Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm trying to think. I mean, your time it make you be a lot faster, but that's about the only thing I can think of is like, um I know I think we cover short books is just the short of it.
Yeah.
I have some notes here laid out, and I think we've kind of covered most of them as far as for short books because they're short. It's not much to go over.
Exactly. Exactly. And long books are long. There's a lot longer to write, a lot longer to edit. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I took notes on thought process for writing novels because I've wrote, 2 novels, working on a third one. I feel like your organization has to be more in depth too.
Yep.
You have to be like we've talked about keeping it cohesive. You have to be way more cohesive with way more character development. You have to be more cohesive with plot development. You have to be, consistent with that. So the depth and details of the novels is way greater than if you were doing it with a shorter book. So it may take you a little bit more intricacy with deciding where everything's going versus like just explaining a dream or explaining a short story.
Yeah, it worries me because of plot holes. If it's a really long book and
Mhm.
if you jump kind of story arcing and from this character on this side of the world to this character, are you going to miss something? That's like I loved Lost, but there was a
Mhm.
lot of things I hated about it. Like the young
Like,
boy.
everything besides the beginning? Like, everything up until the end?
Yeah, I mean, a lot like the young boy, and he was so special, and things were going to happen, and then he was off the island, and then nothing, and then they see him years later when he's like 15, and I'm like, you didn't even finish that, or the cork at the end. I'm like, none of this makes any sense.
Yeah, and the thing that bothered me about Lost was the whole time people were like, "I think this is purgatory," and they're like, "It's not purgatory." Then the final season, you're like, "It's purgatory."
Yep.
Like, really? I
Yep.
waited all this time for that? Well, I feel like that was a slight letdown. I still enjoyed that show, but my biggest letdown was season 8 of Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah. I don't even.
I'm
I
literally
just.
waiting for the real one to come out because that is not how it was supposed to end.
Yeah. I really put that out of my mind. It really sucks.
Yeah, I don't care. Y'all can come at me for it. I don't care because I was just like, this is where you left us. This is what you
Yes.
left us with.
And
Yeah.
think about it. We waited it was like waiting for a book for 2 years. Like, all right, the final
Mm-hmm.
book in the series is coming out. And
Yep.
oh,
Yep. And I mean, even the people that did it, like they knew they didn't even want to listen to like they stayed off social media. They knew it was going to be crap. They knew people were going to come at them. I'm like, wow, really?
yeah, the same thing with Walking Dead, but
Yeah,
We
we've
should not
already
go there.
talked about that and how we both gave up on that one.
Yep.
So, all right, some other pros that I have listed here. Reading a novel, there's more engagement with a reader to get into the story. As far as it keeps them engaged longer. So that might be a situation where if someone has a short attention span, they don't want to tackle a novel reading wise, they may go towards a shorter book. So that'd be a pro for a short book. But there may be people who want that long, engaging story. But like for me, even though I write longer books, I like to write shorter chapters.
I reading wise, I prefer longer books. I love to get lost in a book for a week or more, and because I won't I will try not to sit down and consume it. Like even I remember when Terry Brooks they had like Shannara trilogies and quadrologies. Like they did a trilogy for Sword, Elfstones, and Wish Song. And I got the big hard copy, and I was like, "Ooh, right! I got like 1,400 pages or something to read." And I've already read them before, but I would get in them. And here's the crazy thing: I would back in those it's like fantasy. So they're like we're on the trail and we're hiding from the orcs, and all we had to eat now was some old bread and some stale cheese and some nuts. I swear to you, as I'm reading a Shannara series, I live on bread, cheese, and nuts and dried fruits.
Are you like one of those method actors, but you're a method reader?
I am
You're
a
like,
method reader.
I gotta get into the character.
I do. I get so lost, and I'm like, oh, I know they're gonna camp out for the night. So I'd get in a chair, and I'd be eating my dried raisins and a piece of cheese.
I guess that's the same thing as after everybody, watches Twilight, they want to go find a vampire to bite them.
This is true. Or some of my friends run every year. They have Wizard Fest in Ironton, Ohio, and it's Harry Potter themed. And everyone's dressed up, and they're having Quidditch matches.
Everybody wants to play real Quidditch.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You get so into the characters, you want to be in that fantasy world. That's why people love it. It's nothing different than like Comic-Con. People want to be dressed up as their favorite superhero, which the next time we record, we need to wear our Superman outfits because we will be celebrating Superman's birthday soon. And, even though it's
only got one anymore.
What?
I'm sorry. I just had a Superman t-shirt.
Yes.
Maybe I'll have. I don't have it anymore. I wore it out. Maybe I'll have like a J or a V put on, in that thing. I'll have my T-shirt guy make me one.
That's not the House of L. That's not the House of L.
That's the House of V.
The V for Vendetta.
My wife wants to get a tattoo. Just hint. As it says SW. So like even in the Wonder Woman, I don't know if you've seen like Wonder Woman for Social Worker. So it has SW or for Superman. So she showed me one. What do you think about this? And I'm like, yeah, that would be a good one for Carson to do.
Yeah, fly to Florida, Diane.
Yep, in a plane, not like this. We can't do that yet.
No, all right, so back to the novel part. Let's talk about cost. So if you have to decide what type of author you want to be. Do you want to be someone who's going to sit and try to get traditionally published to where that kind of thing? Or are you wanting someone just wants to keep putting books out? You have to decide what you want to be. And if you want to be an author that is picked up by a traditional publisher, you're probably going to want to do a novel because that's usually what they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely they're going to, if you have an 80-page book, 100-page book, they're probably not even going to take a glance at it.
No. But, I mean, I'm not saying that's not a thing, but when you go to Barnes & Noble, there's usually not a lot of short story in the bestsellers. So they're not trying to push those. I'm not saying that there aren't, compilation-wise, but I'm saying that that's typically what they're looking for. They're looking for that next bestseller to go on that shelf when you walk in Books A Million and Barnes & Noble. So those are some of the things you need to think about is what type of author you want to be. Where do you want as far as your marketing goes?
Yeah, if you're an indie author, especially if you're just publishing on Kindle or wherever, Barnes & Noble, Nook or any of that, shorter probably be better for you because you're going to make more revenue. If you're wanting to spit it out and build a fan base and you don't want to have a spit out a book a year, I hate waiting a year for a new book, which is why, like you said, somebody won't read a series until it's done. So I'll wait if it takes 5-6 years until I have the complete trilogy or quadrilogy before I'll tackle it.
Well, and that's also like even getting into writing groups. Sometimes writing groups are only for novelists, or sometimes they're only for people who write poetry. So you got to find out where do you find yourself. So, that's one of the things that could be a downfall, is like, I want to write a novel, but really I'm a short story person. You know, maybe start with a short story and then work to being a novelist at a certain point.
And Carissa, though, we're talking about combining the books for printing. I love print. I love big books, but for me, it's easier to do the short books. I don't lose focus. It's quick. I can jump from this and that. When I wrote Raise Your Voice, it was I don't know if this worked out for you with Crystal Gate, because it was huge too. Raise Your Voice, and it wasn't even 400 pages when I first wrote it. It took me 4 years, and it was only 128 pages and a 8.5 by 11. So it'd be like 200 pages, 6 by 9. But it took me forever to write that book. I would lose focus. It was like, it was intimidating for me to finish it. Sometimes I find it intimidating for like vocalists who read it. That's why we put out like the Sing Out Loud books, which are much smaller. So, you got to look at your mindset too. If you tackle a novel that's going to be 400 pages long, are you going to complete it, or is it going to take you 4 or 5 years? I've ran into authors like that. Or if I said, hey, won't you just sum it up and finish, write it till you have the story complete, and you're like, oh, I only got 50 pages. Then you can edit it a few times and beef it up a little bit, and you're done, and you have something out much quicker.
Well, and that happened to my husband's aunt when I first met her. She was a technical writer for a big church in Chicago area, or in that area, and so she was always writing and putting stuff out for them for their stuff. But she wanted to write a book, and I'm going to be married to my husband for 18 years, and I've already put out 3. And her brother-in-law made a comment like, Carissa's wrote 3 books and you still haven't put that first one out. She had a book she was working on when I met her for like 20 years. And then she finally decided to write it. And she knows publishing people. She knows some big time publishing people, and she submitted it to them. And it had taken her so long to write it. They said, you have several stories in here. You're not cohesive. Like, you've changed your story throughout because it took her so long to write it. Yep. She kind of forgot along the way what she was writing.
Yep.
So it was not that it wasn't a good story. It was like, there was the commitment to it. Like, it was like, it's a huge commitment to write a novel, start to finish. So that can be a con, because you have to set that time aside to make sure you're staying with it, because you start that book out one way and you end it completely different. Like, whoa, this isn't even the same story.
Yeah, so, I agree. And I've known authors that I've been working on a book. I have a musician's friend. Yes, I'm talking to you, Matt Hoover, who I've known since
not
the
calling
90s.
Anybody out or anything.
Yeah, I'm not saying any names, Matt Hoover. But he wanted to do a guitar method book back in the 90s. And he kind of inspired me. Him and another guitarist, David Noble, who wrote Fiction. And love them both, but it never came to completion. And you know what? I'm not, slamming them for it. We know so many authors that do that, because it can be overwhelming. You start thinking about the what ifs. What if I can't find a publisher? What if I can't get a cover design? What if I don't have an editor? And it becomes overwhelming, and it does kind of push it down in you, and then you end up not finishing it. Or you start it a couple times over a decade, and there is no cohesiveness, like you said.
Yeah. But if you keep it cohesive, you build these storylines, you have the potential to keep building on that story. People are like, I want more. Like, you gave me so much, I need more. So it's going to push you to maybe write more. So it may be a motivational thing if you go bigger too, to be able to create a series. You have a better potential for creating a series with your development of characters and stuff. But at the same time, it can be a little overwhelming if that's not something you like to do. And you're like, oh man, I hated writing the book, and now I don't want to do it. And I feel like
I think the bottom thing is, regardless if you're writing short or long, you have to stay on it. And you're getting ready to smack me for this, because I haven't been on Age of the Sigil, and I'm my own worst. I do what I say, not what I do, and because it's happened to me. I have finished a lot. Like, we just finished Order of 5 and Shifters. But we have Siren, DNA's not done, Mafiosi.
Oh, yeah, you've told us. You've absolutely told us all the things you've not completed.
So what you're saying is I repeat my stories a lot.
And you repeat the fact that you're lazy. Not finishing things. So that New Year's resolution has already failed.
Actually, it has, but it hasn't. I have taken all my notes because of me. Where I screwed up is exactly what happened with your aunt. I have to go back and read every story and make meticulous notes. And be
Mm-hmm.
in it, or will someone be like, this doesn't make any sense. This character never did this in the last 3 books. So
Right.
yes, my
Yeah,
own problems
why is
continues.
this character already like now this? Have you ever like watched I've watched a show and I'm like, wait a minute. Why are we here? Like, did I miss an episode? Like, what? How are my characters here when we just what happened between where we just left off and now? Like, how did we get here? And it's like they just skipped ahead of things, and I'm like, now I'm lost.
That's how I felt when I watched. Was it called Morbius with Jared Leto? He was like a
Don't you be
DC.
talking about that. That was very good.
I didn't. I didn't. It drove me nuts. It could have been.
Why?
I just felt like it was so fast paced and jumped here, there, everywhere. I'm like, I love Jared Leto. I think he's an amazing singer, amazing
Yes.
actor. I'm like, man, that film could have. I think the way they cut it, they could have cut it better. It should have been longer to me. It wasn't enough. I wanted it more
Well,
in
yeah,
depth.
maybe I could agree with that. Like, I feel like, yeah, maybe there could have been more. And the people that hated on that movie, like, seriously, I thought it was really good. For it's just, I don't know. Some people, you're always gonna have haters.
I don't hate on it. It just wasn't enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was. I love all those type movies, but it's like, God, man, they could have done this and that. Why did they do this? I'm like, I'm sure when they got to the editing room, they really just butchered it. And maybe one
I
day we'll get a director's cut.
I think, and this is interesting. I think, and this is totally off topic, but I think when they did that, and then they did the Spider-Verse with the 3 Spider-Mans, it opened up the world of where Morbius and because you hear about um oh my gosh, my comic brain just died.
Squirrels.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I can't even think. Anyways, sidetrack. Either way, it brought together where everybody exists in the Andrew Garfield world.
Yeah.
So maybe we can have another Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I loved them all. I mean, I hope they all 3 just redo Spider-Man movies. So.
Venom. Thank you, Venom.
Oh yeah, Venom.
Yes, where Venom existed. Yeah, because you hear there's a little slight to Venom in the Morbius movie. And then, of course, at the end of the Spider-Verse stuff. So, all right. So cons against writing novels. Something I have here, of course, is the time consumption of your body or your mind and your writing ability. Like you have to take more time to write a novel, obviously. And then the risk factor of writing all that book, putting all that money into it, as far as like, because it's going to take you more money for the layout. It's going to take you. It's like, again, same price for your cover, because your cover artwork is just dependent on the size, and that's all like shrinkable and like whatever. So the cover parts should be like about the same price, but your editing is going to be longer. And you may have to have a little bit more detailed editing. We've talked about this in our editing episode, where you can have just a general editing going through and punctuation, which in short stories may only be basically that type of thing with a slight content editing. But when you have a bigger novel that has more development to it, you're going to have an editor who can go in there and like keep all that stuff straight. So you may have to pay for more editing. So that's going to be a higher cost. So you're taking the risk that you're going to put all this money forth towards this novel and it not make that money back.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely comprehensive editing, because you could have a plot hole, and that editor, since they're very immersed in that world, they'll catch it and like, hey, what about this? And then and I had to do that with Rich. He's like, oh, what about this? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot that. And we fix it and we move on. And I kind of write novels. How long did you say Crystal Gate was? How many words?
About 130,000 words.
Okay, that's what I thought. So, like, my biggest novel would be no longer than 65, 70,000 words.
Mm-hmm.
And I could write that in a month, 6 weeks, for everything else I'm doing. But, if you're writing a 130,000 word book, yeah, it's just like you just said, that could take you months and months and months. And, and if you don't stay immersed in it and you lose interest, it might be take you longer to get it out.
It took me 9 months to write my first book.
That's actually pretty impressive because it took me 4 years to write a 128-page book.
Yeah. Well, then it took me 11 months for Four Rivers because I was kind of like waiting for Rich to edit, and then I wanted to jump back right into the story and not like forget anything. So I kind of just went back into writing, but I was kind of going back and forth with him sending me stuff. So that was bad on my part because I probably should have waited.
It's
And then
Minecraft Adventure Time. I just wanted to let you know.
what?
It's Minecraft Adventure Time. I just want to let you know. It's on your
Where
screen.
did that? On my screen?
On your screen behind you.
My controller was like, "Hey, guess what? Minecraft Adventure."
My
And
squirrely brain is like.
I don't even play Minecraft. My kids haven't even played that forever.
I was
Maybe
like, wait a minute. I know it's not Minecraft you play.
no, I play Destiny. Yeah. So, but what were we saying?
I don't know. I can't remember the last minute.
Uh,
Long books, big words,
yes.
130,000. It took you a long time for the second book
Oh
because Rich was editing.
Yeah. But then the book that took me the longest was my shortest book, the nonfiction one, because
That wasn't my fault.
reading like I need more. I need more. Explain this better.
You're
Which
like,
is like I had said this previously in another episode was when you go from writing fiction to being very descriptive and trying to build characters and elude your readers because you're leaving things out for the imagination, and then you flip to nonfiction, you can't leave things for the imagination. You have to fully explain.
yeah,
So that
very
is
factual.
something you have to switch in your brain.
Yeah,
So.
and it ain't really hard for me because I do so much of both. When I switched to nonfiction, I
What,
think
lies and truth? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The lies are in the nonfiction, the truth is in the fiction. So,
Wait, what?
yeah.
That's yeah.
No, whenever I do a nonfiction book, it's like I'm teaching a class. I do my bullet points and I go from man, when I'm doing fiction, it's no holds barred. I mean, all the lies are in there. It's just like, woo, what can I do now?
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. So, I mean, in conclusion, there are pros and cons to both of these. The choice between writing a short book or a novel really largely depends on who you are as an author, what your goals are, which you should already kind of like talk to yourself about that stuff, who you're trying to target as an audience, and then any kind of experience that you may have professionally with writing and what you want to take under your belt. And so both short and long books have a place in this world of literature. So don't feel like we're saying that one is better than the other. We're just giving you pros and cons of both.
And you could do both.
Yeah, you could do both. You could start with small, compile them, make a big one, or go big. Like me, like, you know what? I'm going to write a novel. Let's do it. So, so essentially what we're just trying to do is like put that out there. Like we've said in other previous episodes, we're just trying to help. Although I did have someone reach out asking about illustrations. So I'm going to put that on our list. And maybe we'll talk about that next time, about illustrations in children's books and, kind of how to network that and how to find the right person. So we do have people who are reaching out to us and I appreciate that. So we will tackle that topic.
That's a good topic. I never even thought about that.
See, that's why we have these listeners that are like, hey, I have a question. And I'm like, hey, we got you. We're going to research this for you and give you our best options. Here's my advice at the current moment, but let me get back to you.
Yeah, and I do illustrate. I mean, I don't do illustrations. You do illustrations. You're great at it. Molly does. I've had other people do illustrations for Raise Your Voice. So yes, it'll be a great topic.
Yeah, speaking of illustrations, before we jump off here, so we've said that I have this cover for Canvas, but what are your thoughts on that cover that I sent you?
When did you send it to me? Oh, one that, no, I loved it. Yes, it was like,
man,
that was like yes,
Tim
he's
coming
great.
in hot. Tim, like, so
how did he do that? I didn't know. He's not an illustrator, right? He's a photographer.
He's a photographer, but he played around with photography and AI.
I tell you what made me think, I love your cover, but it was like, maybe we do one for print and one for Kindle.
Well, so you and I have talked about doing the dark limited edition.
Yes.
So maybe one of them's the dark limited edition cover and the other one's the print, like the
I would so be behind that. I
Yes.
love I love when my favorite authors, and they of course they have repeats of their books, different editions every year, and there's a new cover. So right
Hmm.
out the gate, yes, because I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I was like, this is so. And it was funny. He's like, I hope you haven't wrote me off. And I hadn't wrote him off. I was gonna like try and get him to like maybe give me something else since I'd already came up with something. And I sent him. I said, "This is what I come up with." He's like, "Oh, that's really nice. I really like that." And he's like, "I hope mine's not too dark." I'm like, no, I love dark."
No, it was cool.
Yes.
Yep.
So I'll be excited to share that because that one's gonna be like a reveal.
Yep. No, I just dig your idea though. Dark edition, white print edition. So we're good.
Yeah.
That would work.
Yes.
All right. Everyone's like, what is it? What are they talking about?
I know.
You have to stay around
Stay
and
tuned.
see when
Yes.
Chris's next book comes out.
Yes. Okay, this has been a great episode, and I really appreciate all of our listeners. Our subscribers are growing on YouTube, which is great. We've got a lot of listeners coming through our other platforms, and if you're interested in knowing of our other platforms, we are on YouTube, we are on Spotify, we are on Twitter, we're on all social media, Facebook, everything, Amazon Music. You can listen to us there. Apple Podcasts, you can listen to us there. You can follow us, like I said, on our socials. Always Write Podcast. Make sure you look for that. You can also go to the website, alwayswritepodcast.com, and you can click on the little icons that I have listed there on the landing page that will take you to all of our avenues. And you can also reach out to us on our socials, or you can email us like people have been doing, and that is at alwayswritepodcast@gmail.com, and we will respond as soon as we can. But again, thank you for listening. We want you to always write. And I am signing off as author Carissa DeLay with my co-host,
author Jamie Vendera, and we'll see you in the next podcast.
Thanks for listening.